Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie here at Black Star Network, where each and every week we are bringing you tips and tools that you can put in your toolkit for life. Yes, for life. As we talk about balanced living and the ways in which we move through the course of our day, we've heard from so many of you about the role that faith plays in being able to move yourself forward. Yes, that's right. You have to take care of you first, and then you can bring some other people along. And today I'm bringing a few of my friends. We have Dr. Aaron Bishop, Dr. Terry Witt Bailey, and of course, Catrice Nolan, our resident life coach. Welcome in, everyone.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Excellent.
Real good.
Great day.
Let me tell you, I am so delighted to have each of you here today because when we think about each of our journeys and as we prepare to move other people forward, there's this little thing called faith that does play a part in who we are and what we do. And oftentimes it can get convoluted, of course, with social media, all of the likes, the hate mail, the everything that people get in their inboxes. And it can literally bring us up to here. And we don't really know sometimes where to find our launching point. I'm going to start with Catrice. Catrice, let's talk for a moment about finding our footing and the role that faith plays in being able to get there.
So, in finding your footing, essentially, you have to realize kind of where you are in your life circumstances and recognize that faith can actually help you through many valleys. And a valley I experienced being a cancer survivor was one where my footing was completely unstable. I had no idea what to do. And in that instance of not knowing what to do, I had to rely on faith to just say, Lord, help me understand what it is I need to do. Help me understand who can help me. And Lord, just let me let go and let you help me move forward.
And you bring up a very interesting point about being able to find your footing and figuring out what type of foundation you should have. What was your access point to your faith? Was it reading? Was it singing? Was it praying? Because so many of us have different ways that help us kind of get into that zone of finding the clarity that we need.
So for me, that footing came in all three of those ways. It was sitting in church and hearing the gospel, hearing the music, letting it just flow into my body, letting me hear it, feel it, actually being present in that space. And I know it was so difficult during the pandemic, with so many of us not being able to be in the presence of others, but being in that presence of others, the other faith followers alongside you, helps to lift you up in those moments of despair and during those trials. So all three of those things, having prayer time, reading the word, as well as being physically in church so that I can just feel the Spirit move through me.
Such profound words of wisdom, because there are days when we don't know where to turn and who to turn to. Dr. Aaron Bishop, talk to us about being able to use faith as a way to not only find your footing, but those access points in life that are necessary and critical, where faith plays a very pivotal role in getting you going.
Well, for the Bible lesson, the Bible says in Hebrews 11th chapter that faith is the substance. So moving forward requires you to be not only sequential in movement, meaning as you put one foot in front of the other, you have to be systematic. So the sequential and systematic approach that faith allows you to move forward in your life allows you to not only be with substance, but to know that teamwork makes the dream work. As you increase your faith, other people around you can increase their faith. But the other part is substantial. You'll see the evidence of it, because now faith is the substance of things. It's the evidence of things that we are looking forward to. And so as I look at faith, Dr. Jacquie, I do want to share with everybody that it is impossible to please God without faith, right? Because with faith, you can do all things. But many of us think we don't have faith. And I'm telling you, you do. When you go to a restaurant, you have no idea who's cooking your food, but by faith, you eat it. You get on the airplane, you don't know who the pilot is. By faith, you go to sleep 30,000 feet above. We have faith. We just need to exercise it.
So for those that watch us, Bishop, that aren't necessarily believers, they have to find some place to hang their hat on. And sometimes their belief system comes from just what they've heard and just what they've known. They may not have, a personal relationship. And of course, we're not trying to, get you people out there to watch and convert. But what we're saying is, what do you stand on? Bishop, why is it important to stand and believe in something?
It's because when we look at faith, it is something that all of us stand on. Our next breath is according to the faith that we still can breathe again. It's the faith that when we send our children to school, that we'll be able to pick them up at the end of the day. So it's not about religion. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that all of us have faith. And here's some of the examples of what faith has done for us. Many of us believe that with faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains, right? How many times have you seen those mountains move? And so as we are going through challenges today, just know that generations before you have moved mountains, whether it was surviving 1920 recession. People came through that by faith. Whether we survived the civil rights movement, we came through that by faith. We came through the pandemic with faith. So faith is all a part of our lives. We just need to make sure that we stand on it.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I hope you guys are listening. He said sequential, substantial, and systematic. That means there's a process to the growth that we go through. Now, balance isn't going to come easy. Balance doesn't always look like what other people say it will be. It's something that we're learning and discovering that we need to define for ourselves. And one such person who is discovering and defining what balance looks like this for her in this new season of her lives is Dr. Terry Whit Bailey. She's been with us before. Most of you are aware that her husband passed away. This is her first full year being on her own. And we're so proud of you and see the bravery that you've exhibited every time you've been on our show. Talk to us about how your faith has helped you find not only new ways of living substantially, but also the approaches that you've taken to just be able to stand as Dr. Terry Whit Bailey.
Yes, and thank you for allowing me to participate again. I've learned so much just in the first 5 minutes and being reminded about the movement that we have to take in order to maintain our sanity, but as well as our faith. As a layperson with a ministry degree, I still have to plug in and to charge and recharge. And I love the idea of thinking about footing and balance. And I just kept thinking about shoes. And, I have to have on the right shoes to walk this part of my life. I have to be able to know that sometimes I can only put one foot in front of the other, which is really how we walk anyway. I may not be at a point where I can run right now or spin or leap or dance, but I know that in my case, God gives me the ability to understand that right now it's okay to take baby steps. And it's okay to maybe just do the one step today, to know that I did something, to know that it was okay, that something that occurred, to know that it's okay to step in a direction towards someone who is praying for you and praying with you, whether it's a family member, a friend, or church, and to know that you're not in it by yourself. I'm not by myself. There are times when I know as individuals, whatever we're going through, we feel like we're all alone. And we do have to have that person, in my case, it's God, to remind me I'm not alone. I don't have all the answers. And it's a reminder that God is going to give me the answers that I need if I listen in the right way and if I keep moving in the direction that he wants me to move in.
I like what you said, the listening part, because oftentimes it's difficult for us not only to know who God is, but to understand when he's trying to speak to us. I want to invite everybody back in because I love for you to share with our audiences ways in which we hear God speak to us. And it doesn't have to be long because I'm going to cover some of that in our second block. But Catrice, in all that you've been through as a cancer survivor, taking your family through it, your husband, and now as a coach, walking other people through what they go through, how do we learn to listen and hear for those things that we've prayed for?
So you learn by listening. It's interesting. We're talking about this subject, and just this past Sunday, the sermon was about what do you do if you don't know what to do? And one of those answers was you have to learn how to listen. You have to know that God speaks through so many people. And that's what I learned going through my own journey, is that my mother taught me about God winks. There's a book she shared with me, and it was those God winks that I learned along the way that helped me to know that I wasn't alone and that God was with me. And that's what I speak to my clients about every day, that, it might be your spouse, it might be your child, it might be a total stranger, it may be a nurse. And it's those encouraging words that you hear from them are really God speaking through them.
Absolutely. Dr. Bishop.
It's interesting that we talked about listening. The same letters that spell the word listen spell the word silent. The same letters that spell the word listen spell the word silent. It's in our silent seasons where we can hear God. We can hear ourselves, because one of the things that we hear from ourselves is the self-sabotaging language, or the self-defeating mindset that we need to overcome. And so what faith does, it allows us to increase our belief in not only something bigger than us, but also winning within us the person who we are created to be. And so our belief system is something that we have to not only shape and build, because our belief systems also shape and build our world.
Absolutely. Dr. Whit Bailey.
I never stopped listening. I just wasn't paying attention. And so God had to sit me down once. I didn't feel like I had the people that I needed to help me. I kept saying, God, I need help. I need help. There's so much going on, with my husband and his illness. And he finally broke my hand. And I know it was God. He said, I'm going to break your hand, so you have to sit still so other people can help you, because I'm sending help to you. You're not accepting it. You're not hearing it. I'm listening, but I'm not hearing. I've always believed, but I wasn't listening in a way that I should have. And sometimes God has to set us down. And in my case, in one of those cases, he set me down and said, now you will listen.
Absolutely. This is such powerful information as it relates to how do we discover not only how to hear God, but to listen to God. Now, Old Testament tells us that everything isn't always going to be audible when God is trying to get our attention and speak to us. Sometimes it's in a dream. Sometimes it's in the wind. Sometimes it's in a whisper. When we come back after the break, let's give them something to talk about. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, faith plays a big part in discovering how you can move your life forward, how you deal with the situations and circumstances that you face. But there are other times where sometimes you just have to talk about it. So in this segment, I want to talk about, let's give them something to talk about. There is power in the testimony. And sometimes we can't be free to balance, free to listen, free to hear, free to go, free to just be, because we got it all bottled up on the inside. I want to talk to Dr. Bishop about that for a moment, about how paralyzing it is when we keep holding stuff in. Bishop, talk to us about the power of the testimony and its liberating ability.
Well, Dr. Jacquie, we do understand that there's a statement in the old church where it says, it won't let me hold my peace, right? Walter Hawkins said that in a lyric. And there are times when your test becomes your testimony, or your mess becomes your message. And there's no way that you can hold it in. For instance, I'm a testimony, right? Because recently I've been forgiven of all of my student loans. Are you telling me I couldn't tell anybody how my faith has allowed me to walk all the way from a bachelor's degree all the way to a doctoral degree, taking out loans, and didn't know that this was going to happen? And so when we are looking at what is ahead of us, Sometimes we have to do what Martin Luther King said. He said, take the first step of the staircase, even if you don't see the stairwell. I'm so glad that as I know that there are times when I am aware that I don't see the end of the journey, but I'm still on the way. Every mile marker of the way, I'm on my journey. So when you're pursuing whatever you're going after, every goal, every objective, every dream, just know that God is going to constantly remind you, or there's going to be things in your life to remind you that you are in a winning season. One of my great friends, he did something according to faith. He told his team, which is the Benedict College football team, that they were going to go undefeated. He said, but the way we're going to become undefeated is 1-0. Every week, he would tell those kids, let's just go 1-0. Although they became 3-0, 4-0, and they had a winning streak, their winning streak always led with just one game at a time. Whatever challenge you're dealing with, just deal with one win at a time. Whether it's the fact that you woke up to pursue your dream again, whether someone was able to call and tell you that you are a blessing or you are one of the greatest things that ever happened to their life, count your wins and not your losses.
That's super powerful. As you were talking, I have to tell you, Miss Lady Jane Pittman came to mind where she said, life ain't been no crystal stair. And I honestly can tell you, oftentimes we're afraid of our testimony because we think we may be judged by it. Catrice, talk to us about being able to overcome and the work that you do related to stigma and cancer and helping families thrive and survive.
Jackie, that's a great question. The work that I do is related to the fact that so many family members don't want to share their testimony, do not want to share the fact that they are undergoing a cancer diagnosis. And not sharing can have a detrimental effect. There's so many who are lovely, senior citizens. They'll be ill and they don't want to burden their family members. And so my testimony is to share the fact that I made it through a stage 3 cancer diagnosis because I shared what I was going through, because I sought to get information, because I asked the experts, any and everybody, even teachers at my kids' school, sharing what was going on. And because I shared, what was returned to me was key information that allowed me to find the best doctor that was possible for my rare and aggressive form of cancer, be able to find a network of women who I didn't know existed to be able to understand what it is I needed to do for my treatment. And as I share these stories with others, they have these aha moments that they think, well, wait a minute. You're able to overcome a stage 3 cancer diagnosis at the age of 38 with 3 kids that were middle school and under. And 10 years later, you're still here and you're not a superwoman. You're not a doctor. Well, how did that happen? Because I opened up when I was sharing my concerns. And because of that, God poured back to me people that can help me throughout my season that I was in.
I want to ask you a follow-up question because as you were talking, of course, another scripture came to mind. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. And oftentimes we think that in terms of a meal, but God has other ways of feeding us. Talk to us a little bit more about that, Catrice, about how you've been fed by sharing your testimony.
Oh, it has been amazing what happens when you open your mouth and you ask for help. Are you willing to accept help? And it didn't come easy for me. My background, I'm an engineer. So, I think I know anything and everything, right? But I had to be humble and know that, I don't have all the answers. And it was actually my mother who was the one who kind of corrected me at the very beginning of the diagnosis. There were people who were willing to offer food and bring it and drop it off at the house. And I thought to myself, well, my mom is here. She's got it. And my mom said, no, baby. Yeah, I can cook, but hold up there. These folks are willing to help. And you got to be able to accept help. And guess what? Them helping you might be the thing that God is using so that they can be inspired by helping you and want to help others along the way.
I think that is so I want to use the word cathartic, but I also think that it provides people an ability to, as you just said, as your mom and explained to you, that sometimes we can keep people from receiving a blessing by not receiving their blessing. And so I want to caution our audience about that, to be careful that when someone says they can help you and wants to help you and they have the ability to help you, and that it's the right kind of help, because we've talked about that on the show, the issue with helpfulness. When you have the right people around you who can support you, encourage you, they are able to help your testimony take life of its own. Dr. Terry, talk to us about that for a moment, because your testimony, it kind of took a life on its own. For a while there, you were like, I don't want to talk about what we're going through. I kind of want to keep it to myself. All of us on here today, we grew up in that generation of what happens in our house stays in our house. And so sometimes we have to get out of our own way in order to be able to be blessed and be a blessing to others. Dr. Whit Bailey.
Wow, I wish I could tell you that my life was a crystal stair. As you said, I think that I still struggled with it. People were making themselves available, and it was happening. I don't remember that I really shared my testimony as much as we showed our lives. And when my husband was able, and I was able to get him into a wheelchair and get him out places, we were able to show that, we used to talk about just living our vows, and we were living all of our vows and trying to do the best that we could for each other. But we didn't talk a lot about it. We just lived it. We were what we would call a walking testimony. And I think that has power also, because people need to see who you are at the grocery store, who you are at church, who you are at work, who you are at home. And hopefully that's the same person. And so that's what we were trying to do. And that's what I was trying to do, is be that walking testimony, kind of walking it out. I'm at a point now where I do talk a little bit more about it, just trying to figure out what to do next, how to do it next, listening to others. But I know people are watching how I live, which is fine with me, because that's what people do anyway. They watch you. But really trying to figure it out. There is no one book other than the Bible that can help us to understand who we're supposed to be as Christians. And in my case, it's a Christian woman who is a widow, mother, and how I live my day every day. It has to start with grounding myself. We talked about the journey earlier. We talked about, the footing and being solid. And so I have to start with certain things every day. And then hopefully what people see is that walking testimony.
Thank you for talking about the walking testimony. I'm going to ask Dr. Bishop this question, because young people will tell us that there's a lot of hypocrisy that goes on in the faith. And in order to help the generation that watches us as they are growing and learning, part of that process of hypocrisy is living the life that we talk about, that we share on social media. Are we being true to ourselves? Dr. Bishop, talk to us about the role that faith plays in helping us live truthfully, honestly, authentically. Oh my God, I can't even say the word. I'm so excited about it. Live authentically in front of other people, even when we're going through our trials and our struggles, because we say one thing and then we go out and look like and do something else. Help us balance all of that.
Well, here's another poem, Dr. Jacquie. It says, I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day, right? And it also says, I'd rather one walk with me than show me the way. One of the beautiful experiences that I have with customer service is that when I go to a restaurant, or not only a restaurant, but a grocery store, that I ask for a certain item and someone would literally walk me to that place. That is what this generation needs and want, because they're not just a microwave generation. They're also a AI generation where everything is getting done for them. But when we come to a place of realness or being very authentic, we need to show them through transparency that we are human too. That provides hope, that provides credibility, that provides leadership, because one is in need of someone showing them the way. When we look at belief is what shapes our minds, our thoughts, and even what we engage. And so while we are shaping the minds of the leaders of tomorrow, Whitney said it best, I believe the children are the future. Teach them well, let them lead the way. But if you don't lead them, how will they follow? And then how will they lead again?
How will they lead? Now, I'm going to challenge you on your artist for that song. Was it Whitney Houston or was it Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes? Come on now. I'm just asking. We're about the same age. Whatever the artist is that sang that song, I honestly can say that is probably one of the greatest songs that does give us these impactful lyrics that teaches us to not only, as Dr. Whit Bailey said, I know it was somebody else that says we got to walk it like we talk it. And sometimes we don't do that. And so I know that we're going to get ready to go into a break. So when we come back after the break, let's finish this family conversation about let's walk it like we talk it. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, there are going to be some times in your life where you get into these sticky situations where you're not going to fully have clarity in what you do. And as you can see, this group, especially me, we rely on music and song and lyrics to guide us, not only because we love music, but there's message in the music. And there's something about scripture, even in gospel songs, that allows us to just feel alive so that we know we can thrive in the midst of whatever it is that we're facing. So Dr. Bishop, finish talking to us about that for a moment. Music helps things come to life. You've quoted so many music lyrics to us today, but I can see value in how sometimes dialing it back and settling in on a song or a lyric in music can really anchor us in where we find ourselves. Talk to us about the role of music in faith and hope that it plays in our lives.
Well, Dr. Jacquie, I think I've upgraded because last time I was on the food menu, I was giving out recipes about waffles and cheeseburgers and all that. Now I'm on to music. I don't know what I'll do when I come back on here next. But music is about rhythm. It's about movement. It's about symphony. It's about harmony. And I think that as we look at the succession of leadership or even going from one generation to another, where is the bridge? Where is the connectivity? How do we come as one community where we are helping this next generation get ready for the challenges that we have survived by faith? Because all of us have seen danger seen and unseen. We have went through what the people call the flood and the fire. And so as we have come through life with our stripes, our wounds, our ranks are up because we got wisdom, right? And the greatest thing you can do is apply wisdom with youthfulness. This generation needs us to show them our mistakes, show them what we survived, tell them our testimony, tell them about our failures, because many times we will agree that we failed forward, but we didn't try. We tried. And once we kept trying, we continued to do. This generation needs to know that level of hope. They need to know that level of faith so that they can be part of the mountain moving experience of providing miracles in our community. I know my mother did it. Every Thanksgiving, she made miracles happen. I know my father did it. I never went through a winter without a coat. I know even today, my son sees me and my wife making sure the ends meet and that God will supply all of our needs, but he has to do it with our hands and our feet.
Absolutely. Dr. Whit Bailey, add something to this conversation because there is so much happening in our lives today.
Well, I grew up on hymns. And as a young girl, I can remember having to to sing hymns every Sunday from the National Baptist Hymnal. And we thought it was so boring, and we'd sing every verse and just, why do we have to sing these hymns? And now as an adult, there used to be a time on social media that every Tuesday I would post a hymn. I come to the garden alone, blessed assurance, just as I am. And I know the verses now, but they mean something now. They didn't mean anything when I was a young girl. I was just memorizing words. Now I understand some of the histories of some of those hymns and why people wrote them and what they were going through, and now how they carry me. And now, even as we hear some music now, we hear it in a remix. Some of these young people think that it's a new song, but we know the words and they look at us, how did you know that song? That's an old hymn. They took the words and they're using the music. But I am really connected to the old hymns. Great is thy faithfulness is my favorite. And I can just pull those words out, and it can just carry me. It can sustain me. It can comfort me. And so, yes, music is very, very strong in my life.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to ask Catrice this question because she's got young people, running around in her home. I know that they're teenagers and everything, but there's the hymn music, and then there is the Kirk Franklin music and a whole bunch of other music. And I have to say that life is a good time. Remember, we were younger and we were listening to music and it didn't sound like gospel music, but the message was still there. Catrice, how do you balance the music we grew up with and then the music that our kids listen to today that still provide a faith message?
So how I balance, or how my husband balance it, is essentially by them attending church, right? If they hear the music, if they see the words or sing the words, that is how I believe they're able to, make those words bond to their heart, is what I call it. We don't always listen to the same thing, all the members of the family, but on Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings when it's cleanup time, right, we'll have some music on in the house. And it's those songs that, 10 years later, we'll turn it on and the kids are singing it. And we're like, I didn't know you know the song. Oh, yes. They learned it. They learned it through those little nuggets of time where we're listening to it in the car, listening to the house, and other ways. Sometimes you can't just make them listen to it, but if they're in the same vicinity as you listening to that music, then ultimately those words are going to stick with them.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about car rules, because I know every family is different. So do you have the kids listen to what you guys play on your music when it's you driving, or do you let them have that time where they can listen to their own music in their earbuds? Because I love the way you said that when they're with you in the space, there's music that's, open to the household. So it sets the tone and the atmosphere. How important is setting the atmosphere in addition to the car rules and music question?
So the atmosphere is very important. For us in the car, the rules are whoever's driving controls the music. So, so obviously they're not driving too much because we won't let them because we're too scared half the time. But what we're playing, that's what they get to listen to. And when it comes to earbuds in the car, no, they don't typically have their earbuds in. They'll take the phone and they'll try to, put the phone next to their ear so they can hear what they're listening to. But what we do, we just turn the volume up on the radio. And, obviously our rules, their music can't be any louder than ours. So obviously they're going to get to hear what we're listening to.
I like that. I think it's important that as adults in the house that, it's okay. And I'm going to say this up front. It's okay to be your kid's friend, but there are going to be times where you have to kind of draw the line and let them know who's in charge and who's in control. Dr. Bishop, talk to us about that for a moment, because oftentimes there's a disconnect in families when it comes to not just who's in charge, but who guides the faith in the home. Because, I had some cousins. It wasn't me. It was the cousins. I had some cousins who would throw up some temper tantrums when it came to, we are going to church. This is what you're going to wear. This is how faith plays. We're going to hold hands when we pray at the table. People start eating before the prayer is going on. We had many fights growing up when people would come over the summer about house rules. Why are faith and house rules important for growing this generation?
Well, my dad told me a long time ago, as far as me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And he meant that. And it wasn't just people who was in his house. It was even people who spent the night. If you were going to be under his roof, you're going to deal with the house rules. And, you know, my son, he understands the house rules. But he also needs the social intelligence of what a home is, right? It's not a house, it's a home. So the structure of the blueprint is one thing, but the structure and the blueprint of the family is what is so important. And there are times when, you know, I'm encouraging him not just to, you know, take his food and go to his room, or take his food and go to the playroom. Let's sit down, son. Let's have a conversation, because children need routine. They need relationship. They need rules. All of that is that social intelligence to allow them to understand that, yes, you're my parent, but I also need to confide in you. With all of these school shootings and all of these situations with bullying and children dealing with cultural challenges, they need a parent who's a willing ear to listen, an open heart to receive. And so my son gets that. I'm his biggest fan. I call him, his name is Peyton, but I've discovered this brand for him called the Payday. I know we're talking about music, but I'm going back to food, Dr. Jacquie. Remember the Payday candy bar?
Little nut bar. Mm-hmm.
He has his own brand associated with that now, because he's now about to enter high school. So he's about to get into a whole set of challenges. One of them is how to love a young lady. Mm. So when you go back to the music for a second, I'm showing him what Jodeci is, right? I'm showing him what Jagged Edge is and Drew Hill, because this music he's listening to now is going to get him off on the wrong path to how to be a gentleman to a lady. So in the home, I let him see how I'm a husband to my wife, or a gentleman to a lady. And those are life lessons to carry him further.
I will agree with you there. And I think Catrice, who has son and daughters who understand the value and importance of making certain, you know, and her husband, they do the same thing, I believe, making certain that the kids are exposed to that which brings them into the right relationship with other people and right relationship with their Heavenly Father. Now, Catrice, tell us about some of the things that you are doing as we prepare to go into our break.
So some of the things to do, I love what the bishop was saying as far as, you know, children need to be able to confide in you. And I actually just spoke to a parent group a few weeks ago saying that some of the best advice I received is that your child perhaps should even have a professional counselor. That counselors are something that's good to have, so that if there is a break in trust between you and your child, or there's a certain situation that perhaps, you know, they just are finding it difficult, that there's another trusted adult, either a counselor or a minister or a pastor, that they can actually trust, and you trust as well, that they can confide in and help them through various situations. And so that's something that, you know, we've instilled in our family, that, you know, counseling is okay, and the children, each of our children have a counselor that they can talk with before there's an issue. That is so important to have something like that in place.
Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing. When we come back after the break, let's do a little bit of a deeper dive, and we want to give you some words to live by. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting. We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage, as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, there are going to be times and opportunity where we really need to sit down and talk about these things related to faith, related to family, about future and being able to move forward. And oftentimes we really don't know where to start, or we get going, we're in a groove, and then we get stuck. So let's talk a little bit about how do we move ourselves out of the spiritual rut and begin to really think about what it means to live again. Coming, through the pandemic, people got plenty of pink slips. Everyone, were finding themselves in some form or state of feeling down and low, and then others lost people. Now that we're back outside and living and doing things, let's give our audience, and I'll start with Dr. Whit Bailey, how can we encourage people to feel great about moving forward and living by faith and hope?
Well, I think I would start backwards. I would start with what you just said last. Live with faith and hope, because every day is not going to be easy. Every day is not going to be exciting. But if you have faith and hope, and I like to always use the word joy also, because I'm not going to be happy every day, but I am going to have the joy of the Lord, and that's going to help me to get through the day. Not knowing what is going to happen. In our case, it was the pandemic. My husband had already had his strokes before the pandemic, and I was one of those people that got a pink slip right during the pandemic. We had a change in political party, and because of that, I lost my job. And so it was very scary. I'd never, ever lost a job ever in my life. So I had a husband who needed insurance, medical insurance. I didn't have a job, and we were living in a pandemic that couldn't be explained. And so now we're in this isolated space. But again, what happened was God said, now you're in this quiet space. I can talk to you, and I'm going to give you the assignments that you need. It was clear to me, and he has given me assignments, and I have been blessed. And he has told me that I've been blessed to be a blessing. Not just me, and I know there are others that feel the same way. We are blessed to be a blessing. And so we have to utilize what God has given us. And so that's kind of how I have dealt with it.
Absolutely. Thank you for your vulnerability and your transparency. Honestly, it's quite refreshing that we are able to take this platform and, allow ourselves to just kind of open up. So, because people need to see that we're real people too. And so I think that adds value to who we are and what we do, and that our words are honest and our words are sincere. Catrice Nolan, what are some words of support and encouragement that you would give to those who are watching and being able to just press play again?
Some words of encouragement I would give are that right now, almost 1 in 2 Americans are experiencing loneliness. It's an epidemic of loneliness. So that means that people are trying to lean on their own understanding and perhaps not knowing how to reach out to others. So I would encourage them that, whatever your faith, whatever your walk is, that they would take a step into the church environment, and they, in that environment, can reach out and get a circle of support, some wise counsel on just handling the topic of the issue that they might be experiencing currently in their lives. I know trust is hard, but trust is even harder whenever you're lonely and you don't have anyone to speak to. So I would encourage them to, reach out to a network of individuals, if not their family members, some church members, and start getting some wise counsel, those who are already in the Word, to help them through whatever that situation might be.
Thank you for sharing that, because reaching out to other people It's not the easiest thing to do, especially when you really don't know how to articulate what it is that you're facing. Dr. Bishop, what say ye?
I'm gonna give you a couple of R's, and this is fresh off the prefrontal cortex. Here's the first thing you need to do. Remember, the sun will rise again. That's the first step. Remember, the sun will rise again. So if it's going to rise again, that may mean that you are in a dark season, right? You may be dealing with a challenge. But even in the dark, God does his greatest work. And some of us need to understand, if we remember that the sun will rise, that means that we are in a place of retreat. It's okay to retreat. Retreating allows you to recover, restore, and renew yourself. And so when the sun does rise again, you're able to do the second part, reward yourself. Sometimes you need to encourage yourself that you got another chance, or that there's something still great about you. We have lost a lot of hope because of the despair of things that we have dealt with over the last few years, and even what we probably dealt with over the last few days. But reward yourself. Reward yourself by affirming that you are a good person, that you are a great person. Tune out the noise and turn up the volume of the song in your heart, of the lyric that is in your head, that you are the head and not the tail. You are in prosperity, never going to be lacking. And the last thing is, not only reach out, but reconnect. Reconnect. Let someone know that you're here to inspire greatness. If you've encouraged yourself, encourage your brother, encourage your friend. Let them know that trouble doesn't last always, because remember, the sun will rise again. You're only in a retreat to get restored, renewed, and reframing your mind, because you got to read the word and understand things that are in your favor. But most of all, reward yourself and then reconnect.
So I'm going to do this in reverse, because Bishop, I'm going to start with you and ask a follow-up with a question, because there's some people who haven't been able to sit down. They have just been going and going and going. Can you talk to us a minute about the value of pressing pause?
Oh, man. Pause is a great thing, because it goes back to what we said earlier about having that moment to sit in silence. God gave you 2 ears for a great reason, but many of us don't know that it's not just so you'll listen. Your ears are for you to hear the sounds reverberating off of the wall or the atmosphere you're in, so you can have balance. Without both ears, with even what people did with, which is vertigo, you can get off balance. You can fall. But don't fall if you don't believe, if you can't get back up again. Everyone falls. Everyone has shortfalls. Everybody has challenges, but believe that you can get back up again. But you just need to understand that in this silent season, even when you're pausing, take a breath, let us restore, reframe my mind, and let's get back up again.
Absolutely, not absolutely, which isn't always easy. I want to ask Catrice a follow-up question as well, still related to the pause, because oftentimes people feel paralyzed when they pause. They don't know what to do when they're not going 100 miles an hour. What's the danger in that?
So the danger in that is that you start making mistakes, right? You haven't had the rest that you need. You're quick to make decisions that you haven't had time to think about, and you end up perhaps going in a direction that you were completely not intending. And so that's why it's so important to, take that moment to pause, and get wise counsel from those who are around you, so that you're not going a million miles a minute. There's just no, I think this generation currently, there's this stigma that if you're not working 1,000 miles a minute, that you're not working hard enough. And that's overwork. That is not something that can be sustained. And if it can't be sustained, it's not something that you're going to find appealing in the things that you're doing. And so you do have to take those moments of pause. You have to take those moments to find joy in just the moment of where you are in that moment. You're not always seeking the next thing.
Seeking the next thing when you're not thinking clearly already can definitely be one of those decision-making disasters when you're not taking care of yourself. Dr. Whit Bailey, in addition to pressing pause and taking time, for yourself, what does regrouping look like? Oftentimes we don't know how to collect ourselves, and where does that start, and how do you make it through that phase?
That's a good question, because I am that person that hasn't paused. And I think it's for a lot of reasons, just trying to figure out how to get through life. Many times when people ask me how I'm doing, I say one day at a time, which of course is the answer for everybody, one day at a time. So I keep moving, because just like the others have said, when you stop, you're not sure if you're going to freeze or just get paralyzed. And I use that term a lot. I feel paralyzed even in movement. And so for me, I even have to sometimes just say breathe, because yes, God has given me breath, but I'm not taking deep breaths. So I'm not getting the fullness of the oxygen that I need. And I think sometimes when people are under a level of stress or anxiety, we don't breathe the way that we should. And so to try to figure all of that out is not easy. I could say that it's an easy thing, but it's not. And it's something that I'm still working on, slowing down, pausing. And people say, you're just so busy. And for me, it's just almost like a curse word when people say, I'm so busy. I don't feel like I am, but I really am. And I guess I'm sort of doing it on purpose, but not really doing it on purpose. But I'm filling those voids because I have a void. So in transparency and honesty, for me right now, it is trying to figure out how to find that balance between being active, doing things that I know God has given me the strength and the wisdom to do, and then stopping and pausing so that I can hear from Him for the next step in my life.
I think that is a great way to end that segment, that sometimes you have to just stop and wait to hear, and then you'll know how to move forward. When we come back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can tell, there's so much to think about, and we've unpacked a lot for you today. I hope that you were taking notes and gave yourself an opportunity to really discover where you are in your journey, whether it's a balanced life journey, a hope journey, a faith journey, coming out of a crisis journey, wherever it is you find yourself. So let me give you a couple of letters to go with this word to help you map it all out. And the word is simply think. Ask yourself, T, is the timing right? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? And K, is it kind? All of these things are going to be necessary as you engage with yourself and as you allow others to engage with you. I hope that on your balanced living journey, we've put a few more nuggets in your kit. Bye now.